U.S. judge has made the decision to block a lawsuit involving a group of conservatives who wish to sue Google, which owns YouTube, over censorship. They feel that YouTube has been censoring their content by demonetizing it simply because they are conservatives, which is not the case, but I will give you the reasoning for why U.S. District Court Judge Lucy Koh has decided to block this lawsuit. Now, the lawsuit was filed in October by Dennis Prager, a conservative radio host and YouTuber who runs the channel PragerU. He accused YouTube of being biased against conservatives by placing age restrictions and refusing to run ads on some of his videos without, quote, compelling, significant, or legitimate reason. Now, what he did was mention the Supreme Court decision Marsh v. Alabama. In that ruling, there was the question of whether or not a privately owned city could censor religious pamphlets. Now, the pamphlets were being sent out by Jehovah's Witnesses, and apparently there was some action against the pamphlets, but it was a privately owned city. So does the Constitution, the First Amendment, apply? And in that case, the Supreme Court ruled that it did. And so Prager is arguing, even though Google is a private company and they can make whatever decision they want in regarding, theoretically, they could make any decision they want regarding speech, the First Amendment still applies because of the precedent set by Marsh v. Alabama. Judge Lucy Koh disagreed. Here's her reasoning. She wrote in her decision that she, quote, is not convinced that Marsh can be extended to support plaintiffs' contention that defendants should be treated as state actors subject to First Amendment scrutiny merely because they hold out and operate their private property as a forum for expression of diverse points of view. Okay, look, the argument that he brought forward was an interesting one. Now, I want to note that there were Supreme Court rulings after that ruling.
It was 1936, I think.
Yes, this Marsh v. Alabama ruling was in 1936, or in the 1930s. So there were other rulings after that that actually kind of set precedent to the, that set precedent to the contrary of the previous decision. But nonetheless, that argument doesn't apply because Google is not censoring conservatives. YouTube is not censoring anyone.
Well, first of all, they're not taking the videos down.
They're not taking the videos down. The videos remain, but they become demonetized because of advertisers. Because of advertisers. Advertisers do not want their ads running on content that they think is risky or controversial. And so the demonetization hasn't only impacted conservatives, it's impacted anyone who talks about anything provocative
or not even provocative.
Or not even provocative, but anything that advertisers are afraid of.
And they're afraid of everything.
And guess what? We've been demonetized. We're progressive. We put out progressive content. It's been demonetized. We're not accusing YouTube of censorship because they are not censoring anyone. What they're doing is demonetizing content that advertisers do not want their ads running on.
Exactly, yeah. Like, it's one thing to say that you found a Supreme Court verdict from 7 decades ago that had to do with distributing religious pamphlets in a private city. Like, the idea that then means you have a constitutional right to be paid for your videos on a private company's site seems a little bit ridiculous. We can be upset about the way that advertisers are acting on YouTube and the way that YouTube isn't attempting to reassure them and get them to realize that companies are not going to bolt because their ads are being played on videos that those consumers aren't even watching. The entire thing is ridiculous. I think it's a huge waste of potential resources. I don't think that the advertisers are doing what's in their best interest. I don't think YouTube is doing what's in its best interest. But what they're doing is not violating people's constitutional rights.
That's right.
And the problem that I see is that everybody on YouTube who has been demonetized, for the most part, only sees things from their point of view.
Exactly.
So the right is continually saying that this is political persecution against them. But to be fair, there are some progressives who try to pitch it as that they're specifically being targeted. No one is specifically being targeted. Everyone is being caught up in this complete nonsense. That's what's actually happening. It has affected us. It's affected tons of different people. They're not going after individual channels. It's largely has to do with keywords and topics and all that.
That's right.
So people need to stop focusing on their own interests and understand this is a bigger problem.
Also, remember, it's not just people putting out political content who are getting hurt by demonetization. YouTube also gets hurt by it because YouTube splits the revenue 50-50 with content creators. They want to monetize every piece of content they possibly can. So at the heart of this story is advertisers, what they want, what they're uncomfortable with, why are they uncomfortable with this type of content. And again, they are not targeting any specific ideology. They just do not want their Huggies ad running on a story about abortion, whether it's pro or anti. So just keep that in mind. It is not like some crazy conspiracy theory. Joe Rogan talks about this all the time. I love his show. I love a lot of the things he has to say. But this like notion, like he let, you know, the Crowder crowd get in his head too much. This notion that conservatives are being targeted is so ridiculous, especially while we're sitting here experiencing the same thing and taking a moment to really investigate the situation and figure out why it's happening instead of pretending like we're these poor victims that need to be protected.
Yeah, and it's obviously a problem that needs a solution. And a lot of people simply assert that stop persecuting me is the solution. But that's not the solution. What specifically do you want to be done, and what is your philosophical or legal basis for it? Like, do you believe that you have a constitutional right to be paid for videos that you put up? I don't think most people actually believe that's a right. They're simply implying it. Do you believe that advertisers should be required by YouTube to put their soda commercials on your Nazi videos? Does anyone actually believe that? No, certainly not the capitalists. They don't believe that. They're simply implying that these things are true without ever having to say to make the case for them. It is more complicated than that. It does need to be fixed for the reasons we have listed, but it is not simple by any means.
If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now. tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.